Welcome to all of you who have arrived here.
Wow, the counter is going up fast today, Heike.
That's very pleasing.
Many are already here. There are more and more. Oh, have a wonderful afternoon.
A lovely afternoon from me too, of course.
I'm posting from the headquarters in Stuttgart today as an exception. Hello, Andreas. Everyone wants to listen at home. Well, let's see if everyone wants to hear it, Andreas. But thanks for the words of praise even before the presentation. That's always difficult.
These are not words of praise. Expectation management. No pressure.
We expected much, much more from JetGPT yesterday. After all, Sam Altman had already piled it on deep in advance. That would have been just a few small updates, but that was more the reality. We'll see if it's the little things. We had hoped that we would be able to show a little something about Google SGE in Germany today. At least that wasn't the case until 8 minutes ago. So Heike and I haven't had it activated yet. It's supposed to come today. Some private and company accounts are excluded. I haven't been able to see it yet. So the examples we're looking at today are, of course, again, American, US American examples.
Good. I would say
we have admitted a little bit, Heike, today.
I would say so.
Without simultaneous translation, Heike, correct? That's how it is. I can't explain to anyone where to find the interpretation button, but we can start our survey, can't we?
Oh, yes, we still have that too. That's right. We have a poll.
We have a survey.
But now I wanted to say briefly on the subject that we will still make this recording available in English if anyone has any international colleagues. We'll do that then.
It will be translated by the AI.
Let's do that then. Exactly. And now I'll start the survey. We want to know from you today whether you have already dealt with the topics of Google SBU or the ACT in advance of this event, this meetup. So you can click on several things if you have already dealt with both or just one as you have done. And then we can go into this in more detail.
This is not an opinion poll. The survey is clear. No. %36% have not yet dealt with it. Then I'd say we have every reason to deal with it today, Heike, wouldn't you?
That's how it looks, dear Saim. And I've already heard in advance that you have some amazing examples.
At least
of course
we can
you'd like
laugh.
To take a look.
There will definitely be one or two of those. Then I'll take over and we'll just start straight away. A warm welcome to the group again.
You're very welcome.
I'm delighted that you're here. There's a bit to discuss. JGPD announced yesterday. Announced updates. They also arrived yesterday evening. We can take another look at what's happened. The new version 4.0 or 4 Omni, if you like. 4 Omni is the new one, so not 4.0, but now we are 4 Omni. So the version steps are getting smaller and smaller, the ones that are published. And today Google should be launching Google SGE in Germany. If you activate the search labs in your Google account, and it must be your private one, that is very important. Then you can read in the FAQs in which countries it will be available, and Germany will be activated in the next few days. And then you can set in the so-called search lab whether you want to see Google SGE or not. And you can then activate it for yourself accordingly. It is currently available in the USA. There was a lot of discussion as to whether this update would even be available in Europe or in Germany be rolled out at all due to the legal situation. My opinion on this is clear. Google doesn't give a shit about European laws. Hopefully the AI can translate it, or we were a peep over it about the bullshit. Sorry. We've already seen that when it came to publishers' content. And Google was supposed to pay the copyright fees. Then they simply delisted publishers they didn't like. And I also think that Google will react in a similar way when it comes to Google SGE. I'll talk about why this is the case in a few slides, what the strategic importance of SBU is for Google, and what pressure the colleagues at Google are actually under at the moment. At JetGPT, Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, the parent company of JetGPT, or the inventor, has already backed down in recent days. He has already said that everything is smaller, the big things are yet to come, but there is also a lot to tell about where they are at the moment and why it looks the way it does now. A bit of a technical classification of the whole topic. Let's take another quick look. We have chosen to focus on product communication today. What happens when OpenAI with JetGPT or Google SGE and of course the AI Act take effect? What will happen? The current situation is that, of course, when it comes to product content, we have a lot of to-dos that we have to take care of. I don't want to list every single point now, but you will see your points. Of course, we always have the question, can SEO do this? Can we save resources? Can we reduce the cost of copywriting? Do we possibly have advantages through automation in a scaling process in omnichannel tasks that come our way? What about translation? We just had an interesting conversation today on the topic of translation in factory equipment and logistics tools. And of course, it's about content quality. And this issue of content quality will actually become even more important in the near future than it already is today. We are currently talking about who wants to rank with their product content on Google about the so-called helpful content. And Google wants to reinvent itself, wants to go one step further. So the question of content quality, what does it have to look like? That I can still be found on Google in the organic section, i.e. when it's not about paid content. And what does that mean for the quality of the content I have to deliver? And overall, especially in product communication, the whole thing has to scale. So we need quality at a high level of scale. This morning, when we spoke to the customer on the phone, he has 3,500 products. There's a copywriter sitting there. Even if he creates 10 product texts every day, he needs a whole year to update the product portfolio. That means 10 texts a day, no vacation, working through 360 days. Then the 3,500 products are actually written through. So this scaling is a huge problem. And at the same time, meeting the required quality, this is the big challenge facing people who deal with product content. If we take a look inside, the task will of course be solved. We currently have a screenshot of billiger.de, which is an AX semantics customer. You can see what they produce with AX. The entire page, as you see it here, from the top, from the product image all the way down, behind these pink and green bars, that list the disadvantages all the way down. The whole page is completely automated. Incidentally, the tables are also generated there, so it's also technically very interesting how this is used. And this core content here on the far left is the product description, which is now about the QLED TV, for example. But there are a lot of elements that are produced, and that is precisely the challenge. For example, we also have to feed things that run in the background into schema.org or feed them into Google according to schema.org specifications so that the ranking works well afterwards. Of course, we need meta titles and descriptions. Newcomers to AX are always surprised by this too. What, I can generate that too. Of course, you can generate any type of text with it and in a completely controlled way. And that's what we have here, according to specifications that you get from SEO, for example, or from returns issues that you want to prevent, or perhaps to reduce service costs because products are better explained. What is our next step and where do we actually need to go? We had Google. It's great when your own company is called Google, so AX Metrics is already available, and we actually want the copywriter to become a copy manager. So it's not about writing one text better than yesterday. It's about developing an overall understanding of the website. And metrics supports this. We measure the influence of automation, the influence of product texts on your sales. And that is the essential element. I no longer want to talk to the management about whether a comma belongs in this place or whether we should work with bullet points or a fetch position. But what I am concerned with is, regardless of the mood of the managing director here, does this text generate more turnover than yesterday? Or does it generate less turnover in order to get rid of these crazy discussions about individual words and sentence components? We're talking about 3,500 for small customer products, for example. And for our large customers, we're talking about up to 60 million texts that are generated every month. Just so that we understand the ratio again. With 60 million texts, we can of course talk about whether a fetch position would be better in Italian and whether bullet points would be more interesting in Polish. But that won't be useful because with 60 million texts, it makes no sense to take up and discuss a snapshot of the managing director who has something growling in his stomach. So we're talking about scaling, we're talking about larger quantities. A whole year, one person, 3,500 texts is busy with it, or several people, many years, if we're actually talking about 60 million, for example. And this way of getting the focus away from the individual text, from the individual solution to an entire process, that has to be the challenge of the next few years if I want to do e-commerce seriously, if I want to do product communication. Of course, I can proofread and revise every single text, but that won't work, especially if the texts still need variants for omnichannel offers. So I need a text for Amazon or eBay, for example, or the corresponding marketplaces for Kaufland. And then I end up with a large number. And with this multiplication, we're talking about many tens of thousands of texts, which we also have to put through quality assurance in the worst case. We know that the whole thing works. We have added a few more business results here, i.e. business results, where it really has an impact, where the key figures are also directly linked to a business result. So if I get more organic traffic, I have more customers on the website, then more sales should come out of it. You can also see a few logos where we get the figures on which customers are actually actively working with it. Once again, product content has an effect in very different ways. And for the individual objectives of the companies that generate product pages with us, for example, also really different. But it doesn't matter what we are pursuing if the motive is clear. And if we focus on this motive, if we work in this targeted way, then of course I can also influence this value. Above all, I can then measure it and can really track that these values continue to be optimized and improved. I think that's the key thing. It's not just about writing some piece of product description. It's about achieving my goal with this product description. And I think that's another shortcoming. Many people think, now I have a product text, everything is fine. I think that's just where it starts. I have a product text, let's measure it. Are more people buying this bike now than yesterday? This bike or this backpack or these inline skates for children, for example. If we look at the influencing factors for today's presentation, what are we talking about? Then of course we have product communication in focus. We have the data to text topic, i.e. AX as an example. We have the LLMs. In addition to the well-known JetGPT, of course, Google SGE or the search engine as such, where Google has its own LLM, or Meta, i.e. Facebook's own LLM, and what it can and cannot do. We have the big topic of Google SGE and what this will change in terms of product communication itself. And we'll take a very brief, really very brief look at the AI Act and what it can mean for product communication and for e-commerce in general if I use AI. The AI Act is intended to regulate the use of AI within the European Union. And we need to take a quick look at this regulation. JetGPT and Muslin. I simply brought along what JetGPT was able to tell me within 2 minutes. with the same prompt about a muslin bed linen. So we are really in the middle of product communication. Let's imagine we sell this product, and then I see in the first text, highlighted in yellow, by the way, it all reads wonderfully. You are welcome to read it. I think it's beautifully formulated. Immerse yourself in the world of ultimate comfort and luxury. Muslin bed linen there in the first block of text. And then at the end of the first block of text, the smooth surface is formulated. Cotton provides an exceptionally soft and smooth surface that gently envelops your skin. It is soft, that's true. We'll see if it's smooth in a moment. And then on the other side, we have a soft texture, so we have a surface. And now I don't know who knows what muslin looks like. My point is that we have two contradictory statements here. On the one hand, we have a texture, and on the other, a smooth surface. And that is typical of LLMs. The LLMs are trained, i.e. large language models, for those who haven't heard the term yet, are trained with billions of texts from the web. And if several 100,000 texts say that muslin has a texture, and another 100,000 texts say that the thing is smooth, then the machine believes both sources. It can't weigh things up. The machine can't judge what is right or wrong. Instead, it takes in both pieces of information. Both have a certain validity for the machine. They are statistically, stochastically, demonstrably frequent. And then the text is put together. And it is not a knowledge engine, but a language machine. Large language model is a language rendering machine. And the basic mistake that is often made is to believe that JGPT knows something. JGPT knows nothing. It only knows the relationships between words, and much of the information that JGPT then outputs, as well as the other large language models, is frequently mentioned on the web. And this corpus of data is stored in the JGPT database, and then the answers are generated. JGPT cannot judge whether it is right or wrong. Instead, it writes, sorry, like a stupid parrot that doesn't know what hello darling means either. It just repeats it because it can, and because someone is happy, and because there is food. It's similar with JGPT. The machine wants to please us, and then we get answers to what we ask. I would never say I can't tell you exactly. I don't know what's right now. I have found soft texture and smooth surface. So a copywriter in your house who isn't sure might come to you and ask you back. But JGPT won't do that. So within 2 minutes, these two texts are created. And just that we've broken it up and everyone knows this is muslin fabric and it's not smooth. It has a waffle-like surface. It keeps you warm in winter because it forms small air chambers, and it cools in summer because the same air chambers have this cooling effect. I would have liked to have seen that in this text. And then we only see that there is a smooth surface or a corresponding texture. Don't worry, Google doesn't do it any better. This is an example from the USA from yesterday. I think it's a very, very good example. So someone asks Google, give me some food names, i.e. food names that end with, I don't know why he came up with this question, but that's what he asked. And please take a look at this answer. Applum, bananum, strawberry, tomatum, and coconut. What's interesting is that I can now find the coconut at the end. Where does it end with not at all? And the others are just added to this and somehow linguistically they're at least bent and inflected in such a way that it is actually a correct answer where you could use it that way. But that's exactly what it is. We get from the LLM, we don't get a correct answer, we get an answer. And I have to check whether this answer is correct. What does that mean for product communication? In case of doubt, I would now have to correct the spelling for my apple texts or for my banana texts. I might have to correct the spelling here, and this is also always highly appreciated, how good the spelling is at JetGPT. One of our customers is a chainsaw manufacturer in Baden-Württemberg. And when we had the word electric chainsaw generated, electric chainsaw was written in lowercase. Again, it just needs to be in lowercase enough times in the data corpus. Then the machine believes that electric chainsaw is written in lowercase. It is simply not aware that it is a noun. I have to capitalize it in German, but it says that someone is writing electric chainsaw in lowercase. I think that's great. I write it in lowercase too. And then you are asked to correct it accordingly. And again, if I have to write 3,500 texts now, and then do it with a corresponding AI, for example, using an LLM, then I have to proofread every text and be prepared for the fact that such small and large traps can be built in. And then questions arise, for example, with regard to product liability. This is absolutely clear with electric chainsaws. An electric chainsaw can seriously injure someone. It's perhaps not quite so clear in other areas when it comes to things like battery regulations or allergy issues. Allergy issues, so not mentioning hazelnuts if they are contained in the product is very bad. Someone could die from it. Incidentally, just like big pharmacies produce with us, because when it comes to medication, they don't have any. I'll try something different, or I'll write something I've read somewhere. It's about life-threatening injuries that can occur and the danger to life that can arise from taking the wrong medication. And when a pharmacy has reduced its warning costs by millions of euros per year to zero, i.e. several million euros per year to zero, because the errors in the product descriptions have suddenly disappeared, then it becomes absolutely clear that there can be no, it is probably correct. It can't work to say that 98% or 95% of the content that comes out is correct. It has to be accurate, and then cannot be based on some incorrect information in the network that is contained in the data corpus, in the text corpus. Text corpus, false information can be spread through this system. So now we have my text here, which SkatePro has generated with X. And what I think is really nice here, if you look at this inline skate for children, there is a wonderful formulation at the bottom that the for can be used for different children. The inline skates are adjustable in length, and then I can pass them on to children, use them for one child for several years, and then pass them on to another child, for example. Try generating something like this with an LLM for every product you have. So now it works here. They are adjustable in size. The others are more suitable for the racetrack. The third ones are perhaps even a bit suitable for the forest. Suitable. And so there are very different arguments that would speak in favor of these particular inline skates. And then this prompt has to be adjusted each time. And then again, the question, then I have a text. Now it's a seasonal product. Next season, the wonderful pink object here might come in light blue or green. And instead of 4 rows, it might only come in 3 or 5. It doesn't matter at all. We'll still have one of these skis here, possibly for skating. Skating, all these things then have to be covered in text. And that's what I demand from a machine. The previous internet crawled and has this information in it as a text corpus. And very importantly, because I keep hearing, yes, then we'll just retrain it, and JGPT 5, 8, 9, or 12 would do it better. We'll talk about why that's not so easy and why it's not simply solved with 5, 8, or 12 as the version number. Let's take a very brief look at the question of AI Act. What is it actually all about? And this is really important if you generate content generated with AI. The LLM content, i.e. from large language models, must be labeled in the EU. The wording is not yet completely clear, i.e. generated with artificial intelligence, or whether it has to say it is with JGPT. That has not yet been clarified. The decision has been taken, and it's the same as always. Now the countries have to implement it accordingly, this so-called AI Act. And Germany is, as always, eagerly leading the way and is already making sure that systems where the algorithm is developed by the publisher of the information are exempt. But LLMs, even if they are customized, we'll come to the topic of Bosch or Otto building their own GPDs in a moment. This does not apply. This means that I have to mark the text here in any case. And this only applies if the algorithm was completely developed by me. In the case of data-to-text solutions, you develop the algorithm because you shape the text training and say what the machine can and cannot formulate. They are exempt from labeling. So these are systems where the algorithm comes entirely from you. If only parts come from an AI that you have not built yourself completely, then you have to label it. And again, the question of how, we can't answer that specifically yet, but who is already very happy that the whole issue is taking place? This is the next big bureaucratic act in e-commerce, is the TÜV. The TÜV is delighted and has also announced this on its website. European AI Regulation TÜV Association welcomes the EU member states' approval of the AI Act. Congratulations. Why? Because if you read the last sentence of this introductory text, TÜV organizations are preparing for implementation with the TÜV AI Lab. Now you can guess who is checking whether the companies are labeling this correctly and whether the processes behind it are set up correctly. That's right, TÜV will receive billions in business from the state. And that always means, on the other hand, that there are billions in costs somewhere. And I can understand the joy at TÜV. I've also been thinking about switching to it for a short time because it's going to be the next money printing machine that we have built up there in terms of the administration of bureaucratic processes, or the promotion of bureaucracy actually generates in terms of money. Where does Google currently stand? So this is really just a very brief look at the AI Act. You have to label when you use LLMs. That will be the big issue. Processes have to be approved. And the TÜV will look at it. Where does Google currently stand? People keep saying, yes, Google is set. Nothing is happening. It's a huge company. When I hear these conversations over a beer in the evening or with colleagues, it reminds me a lot of Yahoo. And I hope that we have some of us who still remember Yahoo. Remember, back then, they had a very similar position in the global market as a search engine, as a search catalog. It wasn't an engine, but a catalog. And this catalog had exactly the same attitude back then. There was the question, email account where? At Yahoo, of course, I have the search catalog, we're in there too. Then there were all the offers with weather and content and everything that was displayed. A huge company, and Google is doing similarly well today. But this too big to fail thing is no longer true. Google is currently facing a huge challenge. OpenAI is attacking Google. It has been announced, and I think many of us, myself included, were expecting it yesterday, that OpenAI would present its search engine. That didn't happen. Instead, other features were proclaimed and announced yesterday, and we'll talk about them again in a moment, or even released in this new 4.0 or 4 Omni version that was released, which, by the way, is also free again. You can use it for free again. You don't have to pay money as you did with 4.0, but now you're routing back. We can talk about that in a moment. But very important, OpenAI is attacking. Amazon is already the biggest product search engine in the world. So people no longer go to Google and type in an item they're looking for, but more than half of the world's searches for products end up directly on Amazon and lead to a purchase. Google wants to turn this back. That's why Google merchant offers are now free of charge for certain industries and countries. They want more content to create more listings for products in order to compete with Amazon. Both of these are now huge developments, and investors and shareholders are no longer concerned with whether Google will build a cool feature tomorrow or not, but with the fact that Google is under massive pressure from shareholders. You have to do something. We are afraid for our money. We have to assert our supremacy. We are the most successful online company in the world. We need you. You have to build a product. The focus is no longer on the user. The focus is currently on the shareholders. That's always a dangerous situation when something like this happens in a company, because we are no longer looking at the user. What do they actually want? What do they need? When are search results good? And maybe you've already caught yourself doing it, that you enter Reddit after your search query, for example, because you are looking for something on Reddit. So you only use Google to search Reddit. We have an international fashion group, very well known, very big, you know the name. They are now searched for more often on TikTok than in the Google search slot. So these changes where the search queries are going are taking place at Amazon and OpenAI, just as they are now taking place at TikTok. but Google needs fast and effective results for these investors before this migration, and so does TikTok. And Google should actually be much further along by now. What is being done now is to build Google SGE at full speed. The search generative experience, i.e. the generative search result that is understood as an experience, as a search experience, or is understood as an experience that is being worked on. And SGE is being driven forward at full speed. As I said, legal requirements do not play a role from my point of view. What it costs is currently irrelevant. What the user wants is just as irrelevant. There is panic at the moment at Yahoo. The panic was also great at the time, and now we have exactly the same panic, the same action that we see. And the pressure is huge. Why is the pressure so great? Because LLMs are not currently earning any money. So yesterday, JGPD said you'll get the new version for free again. So the small private accounts, you have to pay for commercial accounts anyway. That's not changing. But the small accounts can use the new version free of charge. That's why LLMs are pushing into all markets. The idea is to create assistants, search engines. They are considering whether to integrate it into Word and when it will be available in Word. This has to be co-financed via the Word license. We are thinking about search engines and the construction of search engines, and you think about individual GPDs, which then cause costs and should cause costs in the future. So if Bosch builds its own GPD or Otto builds its own GPD, then higher costs will be higher costs. Other business models will be sought. And as these business areas are being explored, and there is also pressure on investors and lenders, the technical advantage must be monetized. Sam Altman has received over $20 billion to build this tool. Nobody gives you $20 billion as a do-gooder. They want refinancing on that $20 billion. They want 100 or 120 billion back out of that money. And that will only work if something is found where money can be made. And if you look at the digital world, where do I make money? Then the search engine is always one of the top things. And now you understand the pressure Google is currently under. They can also calculate how much revenue they make. Who needs this return on investment? That the company gets a valuation that is so high that everyone can pull their 120 billion out of their 20 billion. In other words, a six-fold, five-fold increase in the capital invested. At the moment, this is creating this incredible pressure and this rapid action. You know the problem? When the Google CEO talked about AI in his Google speech and somehow used the word AI 2,000 times, there are memes about it on the internet. So you can see that there is real pressure on it, and the expectations of investors are also huge. So what does Google SBU has for us? If there is so much pressure on it and the product comes up, whether it is good for the user or not, whether the search results lead to the right result, i.e. to the right purchase result, to the right product, for example, or not, doesn't matter at all. And I warmly recommend this Socrates article to you. It's relatively long, but I recommend it to you because it really gives you a very comprehensive overview of what's currently going on in the industry. And I want to share this view with you, especially the view of the experts on Google SGE, which is now part of this article. The question, where will Google SGE be used, was also answered here in the article. And then you can see e-commerce 100%. That's where SGE will be used. In fashion, food, beverages, so we're beyond 90% to travel everywhere. 89% for entertainment, 86% for the automotive industry, and 28% for finance. And what I find really exciting is also in the following text section, there is a very brief reappraisal, especially in the second half, because if someone is looking for a good bike for a 5-mile commute with hills, Google SGE not only spits out important points that you should consider before buying, but also directly displays various bikes, including a short description alongside the price. Ratings and USPs are also displayed. So that's the new kind of answer. You're about to see screenshots. When I ask a question like this, I get a good commuter bike as an example. Google no longer simply displays bicycles and product pages, but now takes the content that Google has previously indexed. So your site is in the Google index. You are a bicycle supplier. There are 20 other bicycle suppliers in there. And it takes this content and generates new content from it and gives you an answer to exactly which bike is particularly suitable for you as a commuter bike. So your content continues to be masked by Google to defend itself against OpenAI and to defend itself against Amazon. You write a text, Google takes it and processes it. By the way, it would be good if your text was processed. If your text is bad, it won't be processed and you won't appear at all on this search page, on the search results page, on the SERP. We will see in a moment how large the proportion of SGE is on the entire search results page. If you do not appear in the SBU, you will no longer appear organically in Google searches. You have to get into this box where these results are displayed. Malte Landwehr has shared some information about studies on his Reddit server. And here too, I have only extracted an excerpt. Again, please take a closer look if you want to invest more time. It is important to note that the SBU responses from Google take up half a screen, and from time to time the SGE search results close the entire screen. They close it. That is, I have the answer from Google SGE at the top, and then at the bottom, instead of maybe 6, 8, 7, 9 search results, only 3 or 4. And they are no longer at the top. This means that the click rates will change massively. We will see that what is in the SGE, because there are also links there. I'll come to that in a moment. So I also have links to the product in this first upper part. And if I'm not in there, then I predict that the traffic from the first page will be close to 0%. Everything outside of SGE will go to 0%. And the clicks within SGE, there are already 5 clicks in there. And we're about to see a blog entry from a Google expert who works at Google, and the announcement that there will probably be up to 5 carousels with products in them, and products will then be displayed in these 5 carousels. And if you're not in the SBU because your content was too bad, then you won't be listed at all. And that will be the big issue for the near future. A lot of space will be taken up by SGE, and the content has to be correspondingly good. Here's your result. We have a search up here and how long it will keep. And then we have an SBU answer here. And you can see that this is the first page of the screen. And at the bottom, there is another entry of a result, and the rest is completely generated by Google. Google is able to generate the average content, the mediocre content itself. It no longer needs you for that. Google can generate mediocre content from 1 bad website or 10 bad websites on its own. If your content is no better than mediocre, maybe even the best of class in your industry, i.e. you are a honey trader and your content is the best honey content there is, then you have a chance of being in here. And up there you see the product links or the links to pages related to this search result. And down here, Google doesn't want you to go anywhere. Down here, there are 4 fields again. What else is asked in this context? By the way, I can click on it. Then I get the next generated offer from Google. In other words, I don't want you to click in the corner up there in an emergency. I have the strategy of keeping you on here so that I can show you more advertising or keep you in my content offering for longer. Content offer for longer, that's the idea that Google has behind SGE, and which the investors want to see implemented with pressure. This is now an SGE site, Google SGE on mobile. Hiking backpacks for kids. So here I'm asking specifically for a backpack for kids. And folks, what you see here highlighted in turquoise or light green, that's Google SGE. It's right here, the top hiking backpacks for kids. And Google has already added content itself. The price is already included. It almost looks like Amazon. Amazon's attack must be fended off. We need an answer. That's what the investors are demanding. We need an answer to the pressure from Amazon. And the same game here too. Google writes mediocre content itself. So if you generate something with JGPD so that you somehow have content, or you take the manufacturer's content and add half a sentence to it, that won't get you anywhere. The requirement will be to deliver more content in higher quality. It's not about it being long. It just has to have quality. And now I'm sure I'll be asked straight away what this quality is. We can talk about that afterwards, but the fact is, the way things have been going so far won't get you anywhere. What will be important, or what is already important? The questions of strategies, i.e., where are we actually going if we now look at the situation with the AI Act and with Google. Google writes the average content itself because product communication has to be best in class. So the one tip on how to pack a rucksack properly for children is part of the rucksack. That heavy things are close to the back and lighter things are on the outside, for example. It's not enough to say that the backpack has a water column of 4,000 millimeters. What does this 4,000 millimeters mean? How many hours can the child hide in the backpack before it gets wet? So just give me more details, more information, tips that go beyond the product. Just describe things to me that help me understand what your product can really do and how I can best use it. That could be one aspect. So LLMs also write average content. Nothing new is added. Why? Because we have indexed billions of pages that contain information. And now imagine you start now backpacks and packing tips together somehow and produce 500 pages. These 500 pages are like a drop in the ocean within an LLM. You'll have those previously indexed pages and the pages that help make the responses as good as they are from JetGPT will make up your 500 pages of 0.0001 per mil and have no impact on the responses from JetGPT's responses. And this average content isn't new, it's just what's already there. It's not creative because packing tips have never been written to it. An LLM will never formulate these packing tips either. So this expectation, but with JetGPT 12 we have, then you can definitely do that. No, because this body of text is not there. Nobody has written these tips, this creative idea. How do I do it right? Or in such a small number that it is correspondingly small and rarely used in the language model. So the hope that good content will come out of it is really low. And then we're right there. What has always existed, the stochastic parrot. I just blurt something out. I invent types of fruit that change on even though they don't even exist. And then I'm a stochastic parrot on drugs because I'm still making things up and inventing things that don't exist. So I'd probably come up with that on drugs too. Epellum and coconut obviously also end up on if you ask me, if only the alcohol level is high enough, presumably. Targeting the content from now on, that's nothing new, but it really has to happen now to formulate it in a targeted way, i.e. in line with the business purpose, the business sense, and give customers orientation, constantly optimize and update Google. And that is the difference between Google and JGPD. JGPD has built its text content, built its text corpus. It has been recorded, the 20 billion have flowed into it. Google has learned to re-index websites every day and look at what content is there. And we have to use that. We have to use Google SGE to ensure that we place the content there, that the content is included there, and that we then perhaps even get a new SEO, a more interesting SEO than we had before. Backlinks will be reduced, the other factors will be reduced overall, and content will become much more important. Very important, either develop the algorithm ourselves and thereby free ourselves from the labeling obligation, which will clearly create distribution for you. Or if we do it, then think about how we label this content so that it doesn't lead to someone saying, oh, I'm not buying that now. We've just seen that Google says at the top, attention, this is an AI result. Please take it with a grain of salt. I'm just going to translate it very freely. Then I no longer trust the thing when I read that. And why should I believe a machine that this diving suit, this surfing suit, this bicycle, this bike, this children's rucksack is something of value if the LLM is only reproducing what I've been reading all along anyway? Where does the human experience really come from now, and how can we deal with it? The question is not, is it automated? The question is it labeled, and do I have to label it, or is the algorithm mine and I can stand behind it? Maybe you've heard the case from Air Canada where JetGPT was used as a chatbot on the website and told a passenger the price for a flight connection, and the passenger actually got this price, which was wrong. It was much too low, because a Canadian court ruled that you have this thing in use, you are responsible for what comes out of it. The passenger receives the ticket at the price quoted by the machine. Air Canada has argued on the other side that JetGPT is an independent entity that is not part of Air Canada. They were only on the website. The judge didn't care. He ordered them to sell it at that price. I don't want to know what would happen in the case of product liability. Example, medication, allergies, battery regulations, or even spelling mistakes. What will happen if a German judge takes up the issue? I would like to take a very brief look at what ideas we could use to generate content for Google SBU that would lead to our site being mentioned in the SBU box. How could we get into this Google SGE results box? I have put together a quick list of 5 methods. Seasonality is a very important point. Even products that are not directly associated with seasonality. So I would say a winter jacket, sure, it has a seasonality, but even a pen has a seasonality. We have here crispy croutons in summer and the ideal pan for a Kaiserschmarrn in winter, for example. So really think about it. Can I bring this kind of seasonality into the text? Can I create variants in the text? Can I create a reference to the season that Google finds so interesting that my content is cited and appears in Google SGE, and my link is also included with the citation in the Google SGE box? All of my content is still fresh, so we have made improvements to the product. For example, the bike now has more gears, or the bike has better brakes. Then I have to communicate this very quickly, and not just in the overview table, which may have been enough up to now, but now I really have to say that the braking performance is 18% better, or that the braking distance has been reduced from 10 meters to 8 meters and 20 or something like that, and say specifically what it's all about, and that's the new brake, and then reformulate it accordingly. Then this is also quoted, i.e. this new shorter braking distance of 1 meter 80 from a speed of 30 less braking distance on a bicycle. This is something that Google can certainly... I've never read that before, and will then quote these things and incorporate them in the Google SBU field, and that will be the requirement for this new type of product communication, which I at least expect. Price, of course, we have never argued the price before. That's clear. Everyone has said product text with pricing. I have to touch the product 15 times every year. Yes, that's true if I do it manually. If I do it with LLM too, because I have to check whether the price is right, whether everything is correct, to read the text again correctly. But if I automate it using a data-to-text model, then I can say, with the surfing suit that costs 300 euros, it's a great all-rounder. And the moment the price of the same suit, I can say the price performance banger or the price performance winner, and can then go into the details that suddenly make this product, namely the type of seams here in the example, a real price performance winner. And that would also be statistically compared by Google SGE against all other suppliers. And the one that chooses such a creative approach, that will be something that I quote. That's what I'm counting on, and that's how I think we need to think about it at Google SBU as well. Would that be something that a friend of mine, if I told him, would tell him, hey, there's a surf suit, it's got such great seams, and they've reduced it to 130 euros, you have to check it out. Or I would say it's marked down to 130 euros. So the reason why you should look at it, and then someone goes there, I think that's a good indicator for us, whether the content is exciting enough for SGE. If I tell others about it, I think it's exciting enough, and then I can communicate it accordingly. Topicality of the product description. Prevent reasons for returns. This is a very important point. The returns, it develops a return for a product in an unusually high or fast manner. So a product is obviously too small, or the size we write on it doesn't correspond to reality. Customers perceive it as too small. Then I have to react very quickly. And that's exactly what happens with SGE. Attention, this product is too small. This is certainly a clue that Google finds exciting because they want to become the best product search engine in the world. They have to fight back against ChatGPT and against Amazon. And these are all things that Amazon won't do. It's not coming in search. Of course, when I open the product on Amazon, I have a corresponding size chart and can take another look. And then it also says that size IV should fit you, or size, I don't know, 54. But Google doesn't have it, and Google is working hard to find its way and is currently pushing ahead with it with all the money it has at its disposal. And if we want and need to continue to score points because it is relevant to us for business reasons, then this will be an issue that we will have to deal with accordingly. So last point, incorporating social changes into content. That could also be a good approach. Environmental compatibility, longevity, life model, safety, hygiene, and delivery options. How is it delivered? All of these are suddenly things that we could incorporate much more strongly in the product descriptions, and thus also have we would have such a citation opportunity on Google SGE, such an opportunity to integrate our product because we are addressing this aspect of this product. And if the search trend is big enough, recyclable bike, I'll design something now, please, or e-bike recyclable, or e-bike battery recyclable manufacturer, ? Then it's important that we incorporate things like this and information like this and don't just ignore them. And hygiene and safety have suddenly become important since the pandemic. So there are already trends that are taking hold very quickly in society, and where I could also very quickly make a bonus with automation and score points to bring my product to the fore. That's my insight into the topic today. I hope I've been able to provide a bit of impetus with this presentation, and would be delighted if we could now start a short discussion and also take your questions. Please give us a show of hands. We can activate the microphone for you, or you can write something directly into the chat. Heike, how did you like it?
Saim, again, a lot of information in 44 minutes. So insane. And clearly, very impressively explained what's going on. Coming towards us. Today, our fridge is broken, and I'm currently looking for a new fridge, and I always hate dealing with this topic in general. What's the best technical solution right now? I don't want to spend too much money, of course, but I also want to be sustainable. I need the door hinge on the left-hand side, not the usual right-hand side. It's a really bad issue, and I thought I'd definitely Google it to do some research. And then at some point I ended up at ChatGPT and thought I'd ask ChatGPT for his opinion on what I should look out for and so on and so forth. And I actually got the latest results from the net. So I wonder if ChatGPT isn't a search engine after all, without them calling it that. And then, of course, there's the question, perhaps also for you, or what you think, whether these are the same challenges for product communication in the end. Because somehow it is such an assistant. It could be a GPT assistant that gives you all kinds of answers, whether they're right or not. But then I can accept it as a user or not.
Yes, I think that's exactly the problem. Is the answer correct, and how long do I have to research it again? So I can remember a time, Andreas, I saw your question. I'll get to it in a minute. I think what we had with Google for a long time was such a high level of reliability. I entered something and the result was always correct. Or it was so good that I could really deal with it. And I think the times are going to change, both with Google because of SBU, and that's the same thing you just mentioned with JGPD. I just can't be sure. It's like when I call a friend who always gives me good advice, but on one subject he says, I don't know much about that. Then you don't want to use it anymore. Then the phone call is actually irrelevant and you don't even want to ask. I think that's what we can expect. we're going to have very, very difficult times when it comes to the quality of search results, and we're going to lose that reliability that what it says is true in many places. Andreas is now asking here, TikTok versus Google SGE. Who is ahead in the product area, so to speak, and with which target group? At least that's the expectation I have. We will see a different search behavior among younger people, for example. With TikTok users, let's leave out the young, whether young or old, but we will see that with TikTok users. I think even brands that actually belong in this age group and are not on TikTok will suffer losses. I believe that this fashion group, which we have just talked about anonymously at least, will have a very big problem, not today and not tomorrow, but in the foreseeable future, because if you're not there, then people will just buy the other brand that is there or go to the other store and buy there. Because the other brand is no longer there and I don't know what's cool or not cool, then I have to walk there and go to the store, and then maybe my town doesn't have any of that chain, and then I have to drive to another town and look at it there. So maybe it's the case that TikTok will not win a large part of the market, but the search volume will migrate there. And we'll see whether TikTok turns this into a business model. At the moment, at least, I don't know of any trends that suggest they are planning to become a search engine, but because of the short videos, it is, of course, an incentive for TikTok users to buy products, for example. I'm not sure if I would search for a refrigerator on TikTok. In other words, a consumer good. With fashion or shoes or a bicycle, maybe I want to have the impulse there. I'm not quite sure. But I think there will also be differences. Are there any questions from the viewers today?
Maybe if you still want to type or you're thinking about raising your hand, I'll take another look at the poll.
Yes, of course.
Then you still have a bit of time. Yes, so have you already dealt with the issues? 17% had dealt with the SBU, 11% with the AI Act. So these are probably also the people who already have both on the screen in advance. And no, 16% were the majority.
That's excellent. Then I hope that today, the right impetus to deal with this today, may my prophecies all be wrong and may it all turn out to be incorrect. Then I ask for forgiveness today. However, I am very sure that the things we have talked about today will take place in many places in the search engines, at least in the short term. Whether Google will then remember to deliver better results for the user and put the user back at the center and not the investors, we will certainly see at some point. Apart from that, all I can say, as always, Heike, we are not AI advocates. You gave a very nice presentation on how you generated the X visual world. Perhaps you would like to share the link to the video again so that you can see how Heike generated the visual world for X semantics and how she dealt with it. A very nice video that deals with exactly how we can use AI in marketing. We also use it for our event announcements, for example. JetGPT is used intensively in our marketing. So it's not that we're becoming more cost conscious. It's just that not everything looks like a hammer that's been used for nails. Sometimes it's a screw, and then it has to be a Phillips screwdriver. And then the question, Heike, when is our next meetup and has the topic already been decided?
Yes, we're early this time. I finally have an answer to your question. June 18th is the next meetup. Tuesday again, 14 o'clock. And Tom from Orgatex will be there to tell us how he automates his texts. He also has the special challenge that his texts are not particularly sexy or anything like that, but rather
a rather boring project.
Boring goodness, you might say. Exactly. So, and it's also exciting that internationalization is on the horizon for him, and we're going to have an open discussion about how to proceed. We need the community to give Tom the right advice. Should he deal with
JetGPT or with translation tools or with AX. So your input is needed for the 18th of June. Until then, all that remains for me to say is thank you very much for joining us today. I hope I was able to give you a good impulse. Stay in touch with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. I look forward to it. And above all, stay healthy and enjoy the good weather. See you on June 18th at the latest. Heike, thanks to you for pulling the strings here at the meetup. See you very soon. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.